So in 1974, Roy Thomas is the editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics, and he goes to this writer, Len Wein, who's writing The Incredible Hulk, and says, I want you to create a new character for me. Let's call him the Wolverine. He's going to be like a scrappy guy. He gets mad, like a Wolverine gets mad. He's little. Let's go with that. Let's see what happens. That's what we're going to talk about today, the history of Wolverine. My name is Devin Faraci, and this is Badass Digest. In The Incredible Hulk number 180, Wolverine shows up for the first time ever in a panel at the end of the comic. It's totally a cameo leading into the next issue. Over the years, Wolverine's origin was slowly teased out in the course of the comics. Nobody really knew what it was going to be. We knew he was a guy named Wolverine. We knew he had a healing factor, and we knew that he was Canadian, and we knew that he had a name Logan. That's all that we knew. So because Wolverine has a healing factor, it's sort of been hinted over the years that he may be much older than he looks. Wolverine, it turns out, is a guy from the 1880s. There's this whole backstory. Frankly, and this is where the angry comments are going to come in, I think it's all hogwash. I think it's all kind of bullshit. I don't really think it works. He also, it turns out, has bones that are covered with a fictional metal called adamantium, which is a metal that exists only in the Marvel Universe. And he also has claws that pop out of his hands that are also made out of adamantium. The question always was, how the hell did he get metal on his bones, right? I mean, this is just not how you're born. Barry Windsor Smith's Weapon X explains the story. It's about how a guy named Logan is used by a Canadian top-secret military project, Weapon X, to turn him into a living weapon. He has adamantium painfully grafted into his bones, the claws are created, and the character that we know as Wolverine is more or less born. Wolverine's thing has always been that he's gruff, he's a murderer, he's the best at what he does, and what he does isn't pretty. That's the quote that every single Wolverine comic book opens up with. But he's also really soft at heart. He's in love with Jean Grey, the red-headed Marvel girl on X-Men. So Wolverine almost didn't even make it into the X-Men. They actually didn't want the character, period. Nightcrawler was sort of the favored character in that original run of X-Men. But he quickly became a fan favorite. And Wolverine got something that very few characters had gotten before. He got his own spin-off miniseries, Wolverine. Frank Miller and Chris Claremont did that. And it's one of the great miniseries of all time. And what it introduces is an element into Wolverine's history that's a lot of fun. Wolverine's a Ronin. He's a masterless samurai. It turns out that at some point in his long life, Wolverine lived in Japan, studied the way of the samurai, has an honor code, and in fact even has a love, Yukio, who lives in Japan, who he can never be with. It's a really great addition to the mythology. It's a big part of what the new movie The Wolverine is pulling on. So fast forward to the late 1990s, and the superhero renaissance has begun, and Bryan Singer is directing X-Men. X-Men obviously has to have Wolverine in it, and the original casting choice was an actor named Doug Ray Scott. And Doug Ray Scott, unfortunately, because of what was happening with Mission Impossible 2, could not make the movie. So they had to find another guy. The choice they went with? Who am I? Australian song and dance man Hugh Jackman. 2, 4, 6, 1. To put it into perspective, Wolverine's like 5'3", Jackman's 6'2". It's actually hard to remember at this point how mad fans were about the casting of Hugh Jackman, a guy who's far too tall for the role, and about the suits in the X-Men, which were these black leather outfits. Fandom erupted in anger on the early internet. I mean, nowadays, if you talk about Bryan Singer's X-Men movies, they're bad. People in the comments will get really upset. But Hugh Jackman, to the credit of Bryan Singer, was an unbelievable choice for the role. He really gets Wolverine. He gets the character of Logan, both as the berserker and as the really wounded, strange guy who just tries to take care of others. And I'll say this for Hugh Jackman, he's always understood where his bread is buttered. He has remained close with the Wolverine role all this time. A lot of other actors maybe would have kind of left it behind after X-Men The Last Stand, but he came back for X-Men Origins Wolverine. He did an incredible cameo in X-Men First Class.
Excuse me, I'm Eric Lensher.
Sounds like Xavier.
Go f*** yourself.
His one scene in X-Men First Class might be the best version of Wolverine that has ever been on screen. And he's coming back again this summer with The Wolverine. Jackman has really tried very hard, whenever possible, to bring the character towards what fans expect. Look, let's not pretend otherwise. X-Men Origins Wolverine is one of the worst movies ever made. It is a garbage movie. But Jackman just gives it his all, and I think that fans are ready to really give Jackman another chance as the Wolverine. And here's the thing. This is going to be his 6th movie as Wolverine. He's got a 7th on tap. He's showing up again in X-Men Days of Future Past next year. How is it even possible that Wolverine has 7 movies? Spider-Man doesn't have that many movies. It's kind of crazy. I think Wolverine's come to a really interesting place in his history today. I think in the comics there's a tremendous future for the character. In the movies, who knows? We're going to have to wait to see how the Wolverine does. Is it any good? Here's hoping, guys. We've wanted to see Wolverine versus ninjas. We're getting it this summer. My name is Devin Faraci, and this is Badass Digest. So that was a glurge. That's going to take some editing. If you're going to have a list of 8 great monster movies, well, clearly Godzilla's got to be on that list. I mean, they don't call this guy the king of the monsters for nothing.
Get your film fix. Subscribe to Cinefix.